I decided not to make a heavy edit for this video because today my only goal was simple: to build a card house. But of course, I didn't choose small cards. I chose big ones. I honestly thought it would take me 5 minutes. It didn't. It kept falling apart again and again and again. And while I was sitting there trying to rebuild it for the 10th time, I suddenly caught myself thinking about something completely different. The 2008 financial crisis. I don't even know why, but I wanted to understand it better. Not in a complicated way, but in a simple, real way. So while I'm trying to keep this house from falling, let me tell you a story. Before I start, I have a question. Are we at the beginning of another crisis or just overthinking it? So, in the early 2000s in the United States, something very strange started to feel completely normal. Banks were giving mortgages to people who didn't have stable income, sometimes even to people without jobs. These loans were called subprime mortgages, basically loans given to people who were very likely not able to pay them back. Why would banks do that? Because they were making money on interest. The more loans they gave, the more they earned. At the same time, interest rates were very low, around 1%, which made borrowing cheap and attractive. And there was one belief that almost everyone shared: real estate prices will always go up. So even if someone couldn't pay, banks believed they could just take the house and sell it for more. At the same time, these risky loans were being packaged into financial products and sold as safe investments. Rating agencies were giving them higher ratings, and regulators were not really stopping anything. Everyone was earning. No one wanted to slow down. It was a perfect system. Until it wasn't. When housing prices stopped growing and then started to fall, everything began to break. People couldn't pay their loans, and banks suddenly realized that what they were holding was not money, it was risk. The real shock came on September 15, 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed. A bank with over 150 years of history simply disappeared. And that moment changed everything. The world understood that even the biggest institutions are not untouchable. The crisis hit North America and Europe the hardest. But what's important is this: the crisis didn't happen in one day. It was a slow process. In 2006, housing prices reached their peak and stopped growing. In 2007, the first serious losses started to appear. In 2008, the system collapsed. And in 2009, the market reached its lowest point. It was like a fire that had been burning quietly for years before anyone really noticed. And here's something people don't always talk about. Not everyone lost. Some investors saw the problem early. They didn't follow the crowd. They looked deeper, understood the numbers, and made decisions that allowed them to profit when everything else was falling. While millions of people were losing homes, jobs, and savings, a small number of people were earning millions. At the same time, many others made one critical mistake: panic. They sold everything at the worst possible moments and locked in their losses. Now let's come back to today. People often compare 2008 to 2026, but the situation is not exactly the same. Back then, The main problem was housing and mortgage debt. Today, people are more concerned about things like technology bubbles and growing government debt. There is also one important difference. Banks today are more prepared. They hold more capital and are more regulated. In theory, the system is more stable, but the feeling it's very similar. Because a crisis is not just about numbers, it's about trust. Every crisis follows a similar pattern. First, there is growth. Everything feels safe. Then comes euphoria. People take more risks, borrow more, believe more. Then comes the turning point. Small signs that something is wrong. Then panic. Everyone tries to get out at the same time. And finally, recovery. Slow, difficult, but necessary. Even in 2008, in the middle of chaos, there were people building, creating, growing. There were opportunities, even if most people couldn't see them. And while I'm sitting here, trying to build something that keeps falling apart, it makes me think. Maybe the problem is not that things fall. Maybe the problem is what we build them on. Write your thoughts in the comments. Do you think it's smart to buy an apartment or take a mortgage right now? Or is it better to wait?